In a parliamentary democracy, intense debates in the parliament, not only are they permitted, they are part of the necessary struggle to find the right answers to the challenges facing a country and a society. In such a democratic order, a government must face criticism, and it must also listen to excessive and even outrageous criticism. But to put it very clearly and distinctly, half-truths, slander, and personal denigration must not go unchallenged in a democracy either. I strongly reject your blanket and undifferentiated disparagement of the work of the new federal government. This federal government started its work just over 2 months ago. The beginning of the work of the federal government just over 2 months ago was, and our work is, to this day unchanged. In the light of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, to which you, by the way, that is an interesting reaction from you. That is an interesting reaction from you. This morning, last night, there were the heaviest attacks on exclusively civilian targets in Ukraine in 3.5 years. From you, Ms. Weidel, not a word about it. That says something about what you think and how you feel in this parliamentary group. Responsibility for Germany, this is how we entitled our coalition agreement, and we take this responsibility seriously in the federal government, ladies and gentlemen, and we know at the same time it cannot be done alone. We need partners on the world. By the way, not a word from you about that either. It was a purely nationalistic speech that you delivered here. Not a word about our international partners, not a word about our international agreements and commitments. We need partners in the world, especially in Europe. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, I attended the G7 meeting, the NATO summit, and the European Council meeting. That is why, at the beginning of my term, I accepted numerous invitations for discussions in Europe and beyond. I accepted instructions for talks, dear colleagues, and I issued invitations for discussions. This also marks the initiation of a policy change in Germany's foreign and security policy. I want to say it very clearly, and this became clear at the NATO summit. If we hadn't done that, and if we were no longer willing to spend on our defense, if we had followed AfD and the left party, then NATO would probably have fallen apart in the 70th year of our membership. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not going down this path. We were able to make the first important decisions with a sober view of the current threat situation. We will continue to help Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen, even against the resistance of the political left and the Russia-friendly right here in the House. We will continue this support. I want to make it even clearer to you. The funds of diplomacy are exhausted. When a criminal regime openly questions the right of an entire country to exist with military force and sets out on its way, then it sets out to destroy the political order of freedom across the entire European continent. The federal government I lead will do everything in its power to prevent exactly this. And we stand united with the great majority, with the overwhelming majority of our population in this task. That is the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why I strive for international and European cooperation. I do this to ensure peace, freedom, and prosperity in our country. We have seen a shift in mentality at the European level in a very short time. On migration policy, we have set the initial course for a sustainable reduction of irregular migration. Ladies and gentlemen, the number of asylum applications, Ms. Weidel, decreased by 43% in the first half of 2025 compared to the same period in the previous year. Apparently unnoticed by you. Yes, you are now slowly losing your political battleground topic to which you owe your existence, ladies and gentlemen. We will solve this problem and won't give you the pleasure of maintaining it, because you thrive on constantly stirring sentiment in Germany with this issue. Apparently, it was also unnoticed due to rejections related to internal border controls. Thousands of illegal entries were prevented, and a large number of outstanding arrest warrants were executed. At the internal border controls, we must continue to manage migration, and for security policy reasons, must continue for the time being. But allow me to state very clearly at this point that these are temporary measures. These are also only measures for a limited period. We are striving for common European regulations. We want to maintain the European single market. We want to maintain the Schengen area. We want to maintain open borders and freedom of movement in Germany and Europe. But we do not want it for illegal migration. That is why we are taking these steps. I would like to sincerely thank two participants at this point. I would like to thank the Federal Minister of the Interior for having the courage to reach decisions quickly here.
Your word is worth nothing, even if it is written in black and white in your meager coalition agreement. You are a paper chancellor who plays superpower abroad, but at home allows yourself to be led around at will by the election loser SPD. Let yourself, when push comes to shove, you brazenly and cheekily claim that there is no money. At the same breath, you offer the U.S. president to buy American weapons for Ukraine with the German taxpayers' money. I personally believe you already have your next supervisory board position established as a lobbyist, Mr. Merz. As the crown of mockery, you then also condescendingly explain to the Germans that they must work more. No, Mr. Merz, not the hardworking people in our country. Who suffer from inflation, high costs, and high energy prices, and from an insatiable, wasteful state burdened with taxes and levies, have to toil even more. You should keep your word, do your duty, and stop throwing the citizens' money which does not belong to you out the window. But this way, your chancellorship goes down as the greatest electoral fraud in German history. You need this monstrous mountain of debt because you don't have the courage to cut costs on migration, planned economic transformation, climate protection mania, and other leftist and green ideologies to make any cuts. You can't, and you don't want to, because you have tied yourselves to a government partner with your firewall dogma, a partner who doesn't even dream of addressing this challenge, to seriously tackle it. A question to the colleagues of the Union. Did you actually campaign last winter for a government that sits there as a governing party to cater to the leftist sectarians of the rundown SPD, to fulfill every wish? Did you campaign for that in the winter, to install radically leftist ideologues in the Federal Constitutional Court, so they can misuse the highest German court as a tool for left-wing state deformation, so they can damage and override the separation of powers? The SPD, from which they have their social, financial, and economic policies dictated, is moving further to the left in their panic about downfall and clinging to the anti-democratic delusion of the strongest opposition force to eliminate it in the German Bundestag through a party ban. Eliminate. Eliminate us. Eliminate me. Eliminate the colleagues there. That is the linguistic style of your candidate for the highest court, Frauke Brosius-Gersdorf, who merely regrets that our 10 million voters can't be eliminated. Ladies and gentlemen, this linguistic style reminds me of very dark times. Dark times. In fact, it should be the Social Democrats in particular be familiar with it from their party's history. Every dictatorship starts with the prohibition of competing parties.